So grade for it, we're going to go edge, right? So
Mm-hmm.
defensive ends first. This one, I really like the 22 class. Gave them a high grade when we did this last week for good reason. I really like this defensive end class for 22. I think the 21 class for me is more about upside than it
a
is
lot of
about
projects, right?
current studliness. You know what I mean? Like that's and look, there's nothing wrong with that, right? They had some depth at the defensive end spot when they brought those kids in, right? They didn't need those guys to, be guys right away as they've had to on the defensive line in the past, right? So I was okay with it, but if we're just looking at it from these are the guys that they got, I have to ding them a little bit, right? And so that's where I'm at. So for me, it's a B for the defensive ends. I love where like I said, love the 22s. 21s have a great upside. Like my grade could look foolish, to be honest with you, moving forward. It could.
Yeah, but that's kind of one of the dangers of taking players like that, though, Vince, we've talked about this. When you take a bunch of low floor, high ceiling guys, the bust rate is higher. The miss rate is going to tend to be higher. It's like the whole 5-star versus 3-star debate, right? The one thing that statistically is proven true is 5 stars tend to hit at a higher percentage than 3 stars. That's the only place where you can argue 5 stars are better than 3 stars, because if you have a roster full of 5 stars, the odds that more of them pan out and play like top players is greater than if you have a roster full of 3 stars. You could have a roster full of 3 stars that are all American first round draft picks.
Sure.
If you took all, but it's more about the percentage, right? It's the odds.
Yeah.
And that's what I say. Stars don't matter, right? Great players are great players, but if you're going to be honest in it, you have to say, look, getting more higher ranked players usually tends to up your chances for success, right? And last year's class was two. Well, it was 3 players, but we're only going to count 2. We're not going to discuss Devin Upal because he's already left the team. So we're going to only talk about the kids that stayed. That's Will Schweitzer. I'm sorry. I should have given I did. I followed into your
events.
Your pulled events. My grade was a B+, which is actually higher than what I gave when I wrote the article a couple days ago, because I kind of thought through it and I was a little too tough at the time. But
I didn't even realize you wrote an article. I thought it would come out after we did this. Okay.
Yeah. Nope. Wrote an article on this a couple days ago.
Good for you.
And so when I did the article, I gave him a B. I'm going to give him a B+ now. And the reason I look at it is because I dinged him a little bit too much for the projectiness of last year's group, which is Jason Onye and Will Schweitzer. And then, of course, you have Tyson Ford and Aiden Gabert in this year's class.
Home run.
Which is an A. And I wrote, this year's group is an A. So for it to be a B, I'd have to say last year's group was a C, but I don't think last year's group was a C.
It's a good point.
Because of the upside. So, I mean, it was like to me, it was like a B-, C+ at worst. And so when you look at the fact that they signed 2 top 100 defensive ends in one class that have the size, the length, the power that they're looking for, you signed 2 long kids in this class. So you met your style need, right? I mean, you want long, twitchy players. You met your edge need. You met your upside, high impact talent need, right? Not only you get some projectable kids in 2021, but you have some legit, guys are going to be ready to play early in their career in 2022. And you met your numbers needs. Now, my only concern, and the reason that I dinged them down to a B is the projectiness of, I love making up words like evaluation words.
The projectiness.
Because that's what you can do when you're doing like evaluation, because there's like no real word that goes with it. So you just make them up and hope they catch. It's also the fact that I still view Jason Onye as potentially being a moving inside. And so what I did was I kind of went away from what I had said the grade standard was, which is we're just evaluating these kids off what they were as high school players. Sure. We have since learned that Jason Onye's really filled out and really grown in size, but he was 245 when he signed at Notre Dame. He was actually a little less than that. And so it's kind of like I'm kind of projecting forward something that hasn't happened, and that's against the criteria that we set for this.
It's against the rules.
So that's partly why I bumped it back up to a B+. Now, the reason I do that is if Jason Onye moves inside, now your numbers are short. And that's where the ding came from. But so far he hasn't moved, and so it was unfair to ding the grade because of that. So that's why I bumped it back up
That's
to a
fair.
B+ when looking at it. But there's a lot of length, a
And that's
lot of
clear that
athleticism, and
they
a lot
like
of
their length
talent.
and
Oh, my!
athleticism.
I've joked with Coach Elston before, and when we've been able to interview the staff and stuff, I said, "Do you do like a test? Like if a guy can't look you in the eyes, you don't recruit him? Is that kind of like because Mike Elston's 6'5"?
Yeah, he's a big
You
boy.
know?
Yeah.
And so it's like he kind of joked, like, actually, yeah, kind of, But Jordan Patelho can't do that. I mean, but yeah, I mean, for the most part, they like really, really long players, and Marcus Freeman does as well. And if you're going to run a lot of 3 down, you need defensive linemen that are really have great radius, have great length, can get in, be disruptive and things like that. And that's clearly what they're looking for.
Yeah, and the other thing, which goes against the B that I gave, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. When you bring kids in who have a high ceiling, right? They have high upside. When you have a coach like Mike Elston, it kind of erases some of those things because he is a really, really good position coach, and he can change some of those projects into some dudes. So there is part of that, and I could very easily talk myself into raising the grade because of the position coach at Notre Dame. And I trust it.
But that's not
part of the criteria.
right.
I get
But
that.
it does kind of factor in though, is if you do have some projectable players,
Yeah.
if you have a position group that has proven to be capable of maxing them out at a higher level, then yeah, you're gonna feel more confident in that group.
Right.
It makes total sense.
Yeah, right.
Whereas at another position, receiver, safety in the past, offensive line currently, those are positions you're like, yeah, I'm not sure if that's gonna really, if that guy's gonna get developed the way, my big concern with Tosh Baker when he signed was kid needs a lot of work. I don't know if the guy there
Still does.
can coach him up.
I mean,
And so it makes total sense.
Yeah.
It makes total sense. It really does.